Okay, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing a recap of what happened last night. I'm recording this early in the morning on Sunday, and um, what happened last night? Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott, UFC Winnipeg, whatever you want to call it. Going into this card, it wasn't very hyped or anything. Obviously this was one of the more worst cards on paper. But it ended up being a pretty decent card. We all kind of knew it had that potential because, like, when there's fights, there's usually going to be some good ones. And let's go ahead and just get into this. I'm going to start with the opening fight of the night, Jamie Siraj versus John Yanis. I'll just say this with this first fight, like, my predictions did not go that well, this card. All things considered, it is kind of like one of those cards where you don't know a lot of these guys, and even if you do, it's pretty like low level MMA, so it's not like anyone could really win. Like it wouldn't. It's kind of a hard card to predict, but John Giannis ended up getting a pretty impressive win over Jamie Siraj. Jamie Siraj just didn't really look like he belonged, and that was a few of these debuting Canadians. I felt like they just kind of brought these guys in because they were Canadian, in my opinion. Like John Giannis just looked a lot better. Ended up getting him out of there in the first round. So, not a whole lot to say about this one. John Giannis, solid fighter. Nothing crazy. Good win for him. And then this fight was actually a really good fight. I really enjoyed this fight. Volgodin was my pick. It ended up being a draw because of like a foul. John Castaneda had like kicked him in the nuts twice, and they were both pretty like clear. Um, and I thought it was a good fight. I mean, I had it as a draw as well on my scorecard, and um, I'm looking forward to see honestly both of these guys again fight again. They were both pretty good. Obviously, Castaneda would have won if it wasn't for his foul, but that's just what happens. I mean, if you're gonna commit multiple fouls, they're gonna end up taking points away, and it just ended up being a really good fight. So obviously, we knew Vogeldine had that capability to put on bangers, like in his Dana White Contender Series match. But yeah, this ended up being a pretty good fight, honestly. Ended up ending in a draw. So, and then as we move on to this fight here, honestly, like this fight was kind of mid, but like the main thing here is JJ Aldridge like somehow gets a unanimous decision victory here. I don't know how the judges had that 29-28, and even after the fact in the in the post fight conference, Dana White even said like two of the judges were Canadian, so it wasn't even like a favoritism type of thing, or whatever as we normally would see, especially when they're in a certain country, or whatever the case is. But like JJ Aldridge was my pick by decision, so I'm glad I got that one right at least. But I mean, Jamie Lynn Horth beat her, and I think it was pretty clear in my opinion. But not the biggest robbery of all time, I wouldn't say, but like definitely just a little crazy how JJ Aldridge somehow gets the win here. I mean, even if you're looking at the stats here, I mean, she landed 21 more total strikes, 20 more significant strikes, stopped two takedowns. Her volume was definitely a lot more, and that lowers her accuracy numbers. But I mean, she just looked better out there. Definitely felt like she did more damage. So I don't know. I mean, I had it 30-27 for Jamie Lindworth. I could see that second round going to Aldridge in my opinion, but the fact that she got the unanimous decision win is a little crazy to me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'll take the win, I guess, of getting it right. And then back-to-back women's fights. This one was definitely a lot better than the J.J. Aldridge one. That one was probably like the worst fight of the night in my opinion. But Melissa Croden gets the win in Canada, where she's from. I had Zelenakova getting the win, and she obviously didn't. But it ended up being a pretty good fight. I mean, Croden wins the second and third round pretty convincingly. Just dealing a ton of damage. Zelenakova just kept running away at points of the fight. But I didn't know this before, but they were saying on commentary that Zelina Kova just got a new head coach like 6 weeks ago, and they don't even speak the same language, so they would have an interpreter in the corner, And if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't have picked her. She's just because of that. I mean, that's just a little crazy switching your coach that soon, and um, they don't even speak the same language as you. So even it's just if I would have known that, I needed to look more into this. I know it's like kind of you know a fight that no one probably really cared about. But it's cool to see a Canadian get a win in Canada, and it was actually a pretty good fight. It was a pretty good fight. Um, she definitely just outdamaged Lena Kova. Looked a lot better than her out there. As we move on to this fight, this heavyweight fight, we had Tanner Boser, Canadian, returning to the UFC after having like a 5-5 run not too long ago. I think he was more like light heavyweight on that run as well. And then he goes up against Sariakam, which I had Sariakam by knockout, and I got that one right. This was actually a really good fight. I always like the heavyweight fights. You don't always get good heavyweight fights though, like depending on who's fighting, and certain guys just for some reason can't, like, don't want to take punches or don't want to throw punches because they don't want to take them. Um, we've seen that with like Waldo and Derek Lewis, and like a bunch of just unathletic heavyweights is what they've been putting out recently. Just a bunch of blobs. But I mean, Sariakam actually, these two I feel like put on a pretty good performance, and Sariakam looked pretty solid. This was his debut. I don't see him like being a ranked heavyweight at some point. I mean, maybe in that 10 to 15 range, just because how shitty the heavyweight division is. Like, I could see that. Especially if he's putting on good performance against like a veteran like Boser. I know this is his second run in the UFC, but he's still a veteran. Had the most fights on the card, I think, and Sariakam is like 34 years old, which isn't crazy old for a heavyweight. But if he can get back out there and get a few wins, like I could see him being in that 10 to 15 range. It's just no one to be super excited about because it's like it's the heavyweight division and it's just so bad. Like anyone could be ranked. It feels like in that, at least in that 10 to 15. Like I think there's like probably like maybe 7 like high level heavyweights, maybe. I mean, if it just depends like who you're even gonna put in there. It's just not a totally skilled division, but you guys obviously know that. But this was a pretty good performance, and I got this one right, so I'll definitely take that. And I'm honestly looking forward to his next fight. As we move on to this fight, ended up getting this one wrong. I switched it the day, like literally right before the fight. Whenever during walkouts and stuff, I ended up switching this, but I'm gonna go ahead and not count that because I had Julian LeBlanc in my breakdown. Julian LeBlanc's probably like one of the worst UFC fighters ever. I mean, making his debut, another Canadian guy making his debut on the Canadian card, like loses to Robert Valentin, who was 0-3 in the UFC. But it was honestly just such a good performance for Valentin, and I hope nothing but the best for him. I mean, seems like a really good guy, and really sad story about before his last fight, with a passing in his family, and just went out there and just put on such a great performance. I mean, he was ugly crying in the post-fight interview. Yeah, definitely like Robert Valentin quite a bit, and anyone's beating Julian LeBlanc in the middleweight division. I think just about anyone. So I hope we never see him again. But if we do, hopefully he just gets like fucking finished in 2 minutes again, and we never see him again. But yeah, this is a pretty good fight for Valentin. And then this fight right here, Dennis Bazooka versus Barboza. I had this one right on the money. First round KO. This was just an amazing performance for Barboza. I mean, he's up and coming. Obviously, prospect from Brazil, from Dana White Contender Series, had a great performance there. Comes in, beats Dennis Bazooka, which he should be beating him. He was a pretty big favorite, but just the way he did it too is just they're gonna end up skyrocketing this guy in the featherweight division. I mean, the featherweight division is looking super nice, especially with prospects. Like, Lorraine Douglas just fought a few weeks ago. He's a featherweight from Brazil as well that came from Contender Series. And, like, this was just an highlight reel KO. Probably one of the better KOs of the year. He landed 4 total strikes and just knocked him out cold. Like, slips under a punch and just hits him with a counter left and just knocks him out cold. This was a really great performance for Barboza. He also has a pretty good story as well. They were showing some of that on Contender Series, but then again last night. This was just a great performance for Barboza, and I'm looking forward to his next fight for sure. And I think he can get back out there pretty quick, just considering he, took 5 strikes, but took really no damage, and he was taking pictures with the fans afterwards. It seems like a really good guy, and definitely looking forward to his future fights. If you guys haven't seen this KO, I can't show it on YouTube, um, because it's like copyright or whatever. But you guys need to go look this up if you didn't catch this already. They're probably already posting this shit everywhere, but this was a really good KO and a really great performance for the debuting Barboza. As we move on to the main card here, I feel pretty happy about this one. I picked Gage Young to win by decision, and that's what happened. And this was actually another just really good fight. Good performance by Gage Young for sure. He's just, he had slick boxing, and he really could have finished him a few times. Like, Tiago was just kind of like, there was moments in the fight where he didn't even want to stand with him. He was just laying on his back, and Gage Young's like emoting over him because he just won't get up. Like, they had to make him get up like 3 or 4 different times because he just wanted Gage Young to come to the ground with him. But that's what I predicted. I mean, I knew Gage Young would have the advantage on the feet. I had him win in the second and third round, and that's obviously how it went down. Um, I can't. There was a few split decisions on this card. I can't remember if this was a split decision or not, but it doesn't say on here. But I want to say it might have been. It was one of these weird ones was a split decision, and it was pretty ridiculous that it was a split decision. But I can't remember if this one was or not. But yeah, I had Gage Young winning decision. So, and he was a dog. Well, I think he was slight favorite betting odds wise, but on the app I use, he was a pretty big dog. So, which by the way, if you guys are looking for a good app to like score rounds and pick fights, where you play for like XP instead of money, if you don't like betting or if you're not old enough or whatever, because I don't personally like betting. Verdict MMA is a really good one. I'll try to link it or something in the description. It's a very good app, and you guys can go ahead and follow me on there. But yeah, Gage Young was a good pick for me, and I'll take that one for sure. And it was a good fight. It was just a good fight. And then we have Jasmine Judavicius versus Karina Silva. I picked Judavicius to win by decision, and that's what happened. And yeah, I mean, this was an alright fight. Silva, I want to say, like, looked good in the first round. I mean, maybe like looked decent in the first round, won that first round, but then Judavicius wins the next two. This was just kind of a boring women's fight, honestly. Just a lot of being on the ground. I mean, you could see here like not a lot of significant strikes. Like Silva had a few submission attempts that I thought were solid. I thought maybe she would catch her in one of those. But yeah, Judavicius came out victorious. I mean, not a whole lot to say about this other than she won, and she won by decision. And she's getting up there. I don't see a whole lot more from her in her career. It wasn't the best performance, but she got the win. And Karina Silva is just, they still keep trying to push her up the rankings, and it's just not working. But yeah, that's all I can really say about that fight. As we get to this one hurt me, man. I obviously had Mando Nalo, and I mean, when I watched this fight against Tender Series, he just looked so sharp and just good, and he's older, and I just thought like, okay, he's gonna come into the UFC and he'll have to go on a run, and so they put him against a veteran in Jai Herbert right away because he's older. I mean, you can't just, he's supposed to be fighting guys like Jai Herbert and, guys that are a little bit higher level than maybe some other people that debuting guys are getting. And he looked good. I mean, he genuinely looked good to start, but he got too cocky and just got absolutely caught, and then just could not recover after that. He ends up getting back up after getting knocked down the original time, but then just was pretty much out on his feet at that point. I mean, he was just eating punches and just fought. They had to end up stepping in at some point and ending it. I was really confident in Nalo whenever he was, they're giving him one knockdown. Like Jai Herbert was just kind of slipping and falling all over the octagon to start the fight, but he got super confident, and Jai Herbert ended up making him pay. I mean, he's a veteran, and that's just what's gonna happen. So hopefully Nalo can bounce back from this. I mean, he got done pretty nasty, but so I don't know how long he'll be out for. But good performance for Jai Herbert though, and pretty good fight as well. Just real back and forth for the 2 minutes and 5 seconds it lasted. And then we had Charles Jourdain versus Kyler Phillips. I want to say this one might have been split decision as well. But yeah, I ended up going Charles Jourdain by decision, and that's what happened. This ended up winning fight of the night as well, Dana White said, and then Barboza got a performance bonus, and then Mike Malott ended up getting a performance bonus. But Charles Jourdain versus Kyler Phillips was solid. It wasn't nothing crazy. This winning fight of the night, like I guess because it was so back and forth. Jourdain, I feel like, looked pretty good on the feet, but then Kyler Phillips, like it says down here, he had 7 takedowns, and like a lot of the times when he got those takedowns, he was actually getting some decent control time in, but he wasn't doing a ton of damage on top. So that's why I feel like Charles Jourdain did end up winning this fight, just because like there was no like he got some control time. That was really about it. There was no real damage. I think Charles Jourdain did more damage. Especially in those later rounds, you really felt like Charles Jourdain could have finished the fight just on the feet. But he was trying to go for a bunch of crazy stuff, like obviously Jourdain usually does, and I think it was a good fight, man. And Kyler Phillips is now on a 3-fight losing streak, and he's got to really try to bounce back in his next fight. He obviously trains with like O'Malley and Mario Bautista and those guys, and he definitely needs to bounce back. And for Charles Jourdain, this is a guy that needs to be fighting in the rankings now. Kyler Phillips just dropped out of the rankings. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the rankings after I break down this fight and then the Burns versus Malott fight. Just because I'm gonna try to match make Jourdain and Malott, just because both of them are going to be fighting in the rankings. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the rankings and tell you guys who I think they should be fighting next. But yeah, Jourdain looked really good here. Solid enough. Did enough to get the win. He usually doesn't like to go to the judges. He was pretty upset that he didn't get the finish, but I thought he did good enough. To win this fight, I definitely had him winning. I could see people's argument for Kyler Phillips, but I'm glad I got it right. I'm glad my prediction was right, and I like Charles Jourdain just a little bit more too, so it was cool to see him get the win. As we move on to the main event, Mike Malott ends up just kind of just destroying Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns wasn't good, did not look good really at all in this fight. I said it in my prediction video. I don't feel good about picking Gilbert Burns, because when do these old heads that are on big losing streaks ever really win again? Leon Edwards, we'll see if he can beat Daniel Rodriguez, but Tony Ferguson, these kind of guys that are on just huge losing streaks never win. Like Tai Tuivasa, for example. Shoot, I might have to pick Tai Tuivasa in his next fight because he's fighting some scrub, but it's guys like that, it's just so hard to pick them, and for some reason, I continuously pick them. I did have Carlos Prates against Leon Edwards, but still, I don't know how. I don't know. Once the walkouts happened and they were in the octagon, I just knew Mike Malott was gonna win. But it is what it is. It was a good performance for Mike Malott. I don't think beating 40-year-old Gilbert Burns does a ton. I think his win over Kevin Holland even was a little bit better than this. They were saying this was the greatest win of his career. Yeah, it's the biggest name, but I feel beating him at this point in his career just isn't as impressive. We'll see how he does in the top 15, because he's going to be jumping up into the top 15, obviously. But Burns should have never even been there anymore. He was fighting all the top guys for some reason before, and just kind of just getting beat. And then he did end up putting his gloves down, so I did make a post on my YouTube channel. That was the first time me making a post like that, but, just saying thanks for the career and all that, so I hope retirement does treat him well, and thanks for, I guess, having this last fight here to shoot Mike Malott into the rankings. I don't dislike Mike Malott. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a little corny, but, he's Canadian, so that's some of it, I'm sure. But I don't think he's an insane up-and-coming ranked guy. I'm not saying he can't, win a fight in the rankings, but I just feel maybe, I don't think he's as legit as other guys in the rankings, but we'll get into that. That was a good performance. And now let me go ahead and switch over here to the UFC's page here and pull up these rankings, as we're gonna look at this bantamweight division first. So if I'm thinking okay, Charles Jourdain, who would I match Charles Jourdain with? So You've got, I would go as high as Cheeto Vera, because you have Cheeto Vera here at 10. And this would be a good Canadian, please God don't make it a main event, but like a co-main or even a feature fight. I mean, you could even throw this on like a feature prelim of a, a numbered event, like worst case scenario, opening the main card. Or I mean, you could even go Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira's coming off of a loss in where he kind of got outclassed by Mario Bautista, and Charles Jourdain versus Oliveira. I feel like would be solid for like a Brazil card, or like I said, maybe an opening fight of a numbered event, feature prelim, that kind of deal. Montel Jackson, I would say Montel Jackson, but he's got a fight coming up with Barcelos, Yanni Barcelos, so it won't be him. But I think one of those two guys that are coming off losses, that would be the best case scenario, I think, for Charles Jourdain, because I don't see Charles Jourdain not fighting in the rankings now. Like, he's on a good streak, and he's pretty liked, and he's Canadian. Like, we have Zahabi here, but there's not a lot of ranked Canadians in the UFC, so they're gonna probably try to get him in there. And then as we move down to the welterweight division, obviously Gilbert Burns out, Mike Malott in. I could see maybe like a Mike Malott fighting, like, okay, if Buckley loses to Brady, if Brady loses to Buckley, if Bonfim loses to Bilal, even if like Bonfim beats Bilal, like Bilal loses to Bonfim, that could be a decent fight to put together. But even like a MVP or a Euros Medic, like I don't know where they're gonna rank him at. Like, I would say maybe I wouldn't rank him over MVP, even though like he beat number 11. But I would probably put him at like Colby Covington just shouldn't be there, and then like obviously Gilbert Burns isn't gonna be there anymore. So you would just think that they're gonna add. They're just gonna go ahead and add Mike Malott in wherever they think he is gonna be. But I think like Euros Medic, MVP, like I said, with certain guys losing, I would do one of those. Like, if Leon loses to Daniel Rodriguez, like, I hope Leon just ends up calling it a career, but like, I guess you could do them. But it's like, how many times is Mike Malott, like, how many guys in a row is he gonna fight that's on like a 4 or 5 losing streak? You know what I mean? So I think you want to kind of test them. That's why I think like MVP would be good, or even a Euros Medic, or even a Buckley coming off of a loss, a Brady coming off of a loss. I think would be really smart, because unless Brady's gonna move down, but yeah, I think one of those two fights would be really good. But yeah, so that'll be it from this recap. Make sure you guys go check out all the shorts I've been posting. I try to post a lot of UFC news, UFC updates, and then I do little series like I re-ranked every top 5 of every weight class. If you guys have any more ideas for short ideas, or even just full-length video ideas, because I've kind of been focusing more on the shorts than the videos, but I still want to get some videos out there for sure. I'm going to be breaking down the next card, which is this card here. Oh, this isn't even updated. This is Brady versus Buckley. That hasn't been that in a long time. It's Yusuf Zalal versus Aljamain Sterling. I'm going to be breaking down that card this week. Probably Wednesday is when I'll post that. So then I'll probably want to get a video out on like Tuesday or something. I think I want to do a video where I pick a few prospects from each division, and like a few legit prospects in my eyes from each division, just so you guys maybe have some people to look out for, and maybe I can look back and see like, oh, okay, like that prospect didn't pan out, this one did, just to see my prediction skills in that sense. But yeah, this was overall a decent card. I think I posted a short about making this video, and I said I'd give this card about a 6 or a 6.5. A bunch of decent finishes, bunch of decent wars, nothing crazy. Obviously, like, no real name value. Gilbert Burns' last career fight, Mike Malott jumping up into the rankings. But honestly, it was solid, and I'm looking forward to next weekend. I think Aljamain Sterling versus Yusuf Salal is a better card. It's not insanely better. It's still like an Apex card, whatever. But I'm definitely more hyped for that than I was for this, and I think, as long as we got fights every weekend, I mean, I'll be happy, right? So, yeah, so if you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the rest of my content, and I will see you guys next time.